All right, it is 2023. Goodness gracious, welcome to 2023. This is going to be a crazy year, and I'm a little bit late on the posting my 2023 writing goals and plans and all of that, but that has been because I am working on setting them up and getting systems in place to get there and writing out steps and all that good stuff. So today I'm going to chat to you about my goals for 2023. If I haven't met you before, my name is Nicole Wilbur. This is a channel about writing and storytelling, and it's super duper fun. I am an aspiring author, and basically that brings me to my first goal for 2023. So I am popping in here because I realize I am giving you my 2023 goals without saying anything about 2022. So let's do that. 2022 has been an interesting year. In terms of writing, I have focused the vast majority of the year on one single project, and that is my YA action adventure heist, which is I call SMUC, which is short for some kind of criminal, but it's really fun to say SMUC, even though the letters don't work out. I know they don't work out, but it's okay, it's fine, it's still fun to say. Basically, I finished up that draft, the first draft, in, I want to say, February or early mid-March, maybe. I finished up the first draft, and then I did a really fast second draft. So I did change things like character arc, and I did do somewhat of an edit, like change the actual story. And I did that really quick in like 2-3 weeks, and then I sent it to an editor as well as some alpha readers, and I got a ton of feedback. And I took that feedback, I digested it, I re-outlined, I replanned, I went through, and I wrote the third draft. And I finished that third draft up in NaNoWriMo. So I suppose in 2022 I wrote 3 drafts, although if we're fair, we could like call it 2.5 to 2.25, because the amount of work that went into the first and third drafts versus that second draft is like, this is 100%, this is like 25%. So, anyways, pretty much spent the entire year working on that story. I also worked a little bit on a play that I am working on. That's great. Just kind of pittered around here and there. And that's pretty much it. My goal in 2022 was to, yeah, I have no idea. That's not good. I'm literally going to my YouTube channel. What were my goals in 2022? I should probably remember this. Hey, no. All right, I made no goals. So, great. So, first things first about 2023, we are having goals. And that is already an improvement from 2021. So, 2022 I think went fairly well. I'm happy with the progress that I made. I know that I kind of went into 22 thinking I need feedback, feedback, feedback. And even though I think in retrospect the book wasn't necessarily ready for beta readers, it was incredibly helpful for me, all of their feedback. And I think as I go forward, it's going to be useful. And we're just going to go up from here, especially because now we have goals. So roll the goals. My first goal for 2023 is to submit a query to at least one agent. So basically, I have been working on quite a few projects over the past, I guess, 2 years, because we're now in 2023. And I've written, I think it's 3 full-length drafts, and then done second drafts of 2 of those that are full-length drafts. And I feel like I need to kind of narrow in, focus on one, and get it query ready. However, alongside that, up until now, I have been writing kind of with blinders on, if you know what I mean. Everybody says, do not write to trends, but pitch to trends. So I haven't really been looking at market stuff. I haven't been looking at agents. I've kind of kept an eye on what's out there. Of course, I have an idea of what's happening in the industry. I'm subscribed to Publishers Weekly, but not like with any huge intention, if you know what I mean. So the reason my goal is not just get manuscripts query ready, it's sent a query, is because I think that getting all of that information together, researching agents, researching agencies, researching trends, figuring out how to pitch it, all of that kind of stuff is going to take quite a while. And so I don't want to, obviously making the book good and continuing that is the most important part. But at the same time, I have been very much shying away from industry stuff, which I think was the right decision. But I'm interested in diving into it now because it feels a little bit like keeping my head under the covers. So here we go. We're gonna dive into it. So in terms of submitting or sending a query, it's going to be for one project, and my next video is going to talk about what project that is. And I actually am going to do work on the draft is goal number 1. And I have a full checklist that I've created too for January and February. And because this is kind of the most like writing heavy goal, I am just going to like dive super deep into this one and then talk about the others in a little bit less detail. But in order to accomplish this goal, starting in January and February, I have a plan. My goal for January and February is to make sure the story is good and make sure the character development is solid. Obviously, plot is inherently tied to character, and that's been an issue before where it's like, okay, what's the character change? Are you ensuring that the character change is firmly like tied to the plot? Are all of the plot events like challenging or reinforcing their misbelief? That kind of thing. So this is my checklist of actions for the first, I guess, first 2 months. So I'm reading Story by Robert McKee right now, and that's the first on the list just because I really want to finish it. And I'm prioritizing it because it has very interesting insights, and I'll talk about it in that video, but I am so excited to talk about that book. Then I'm going to reread everything I got from my editor, including what's not specific to my story. So she gave me sample edits, she gave me articles, she gave me all this stuff. I'm going to reread all of it and then take tons of relevant notes. Then I'm going to be researching industry trends. I'm going to pull up my Notion page, which is all about, I call it industry and forward thinking. There's actually not too much on there quite yet. Actually, I keep a track of mentorship programs, beta reader questions. I found this beta reader question list that I absolutely loved. It's basically just a bunch of resources so far. Michelle Schusterman's query formula. And then I get into my Google Sheet, which I am super excited about, and how I'm researching these agents. And as I get into this, I've only just started with 3 agents that I kind of know about. So my goal is to do not only agents, but like tracking contracts being signed. What is it? Acquisitions. Tracking acquisitions and who's representing them and what genres they are and that kind of thing. But here is my agent spreadsheet, and there's a website that's called like manuscript wish list, and all of the agents have their manuscript wish lists listed on there. I will pull up an example of one probably now and just scroll through it. So they have kind of like their wish list, their favorite books, what they look for, what kind of authors they represent, what to pitch them, what not to pitch them, etc. So I originally created my spreadsheet, and I will show you a bit of it here, to pretty much look like the MSWL, but just in my own spreadsheet. So I have the name, obviously, I have the agency, and that's because I figure that some agencies have that policy where you can only query one agent from the agency. So once I have, like 50 agents on the list or whatever, I can go through and sort by agency and just kind of figure out those policies. Genres they represent, obviously that's super important. I'm not going to put any agent on this list who doesn't represent a genre I'm interested in. And then I have their likes, do not want, I'd like the next, blah, blah, blah. It gets into problems when you see this wish list. I was going through and curating, so like trying to choose relevant sentences and throwing them in this wish list box, but that is really, really hard to see. And I figured out that this is not the best format to do it in. So I've changed it to be this agent analysis with relevancy. So I have their name, their agency, genres again, and then I broke it out into 4 genre categories. The idea is to take things from their wish lists. So some will say, hey, in historical fiction, I'm looking for things other than World War II. So I would say, okay, in historical, they want things other than World War II. In contemporary, they really like cheerleaders. And I'd be like, okay, contemporary, really like cheerleaders. And I would just put that in there. The reason I have these 4 genres is because I have projects and ideas that are mostly in these genres. So YA contempt, YA historical, adult contempt. So there's not that much, I guess there's not that much variety in them anyways. But those represent kind of the bulk of the projects that I have. And my goal with this is to not just, I mean, a lot of people query their first book and they don't get an agent, which is fair enough. So I'm hoping I can theoretically not do double the work in a couple, you fail, you have a new project, you try again with some different agents. If some of them are still relevant because you have, they're also interested in YA historical or something, you're good. Yeah, so basically I'm breaking down their wish list per genre that's relevant to me. The other thing that I've been thinking about, and this might be completely crazy, is I have a whole bunch of ideas. I have a list of things that I want to write. So I'm thinking in an ideal world, I would want to be repped by someone who does both YA and adult because I have ideas in both, and who could support, other projects down the line. If you're thinking of a long career, you have, okay, this is going to be the first book, and you do some that are similar to that, and then maybe you do a historical fiction, or you bounce around a little bit. I think Lindsay Puckett did what was it, her 2 kind of like spooky middle grades, and she's now working on, I think it was a horror YA or something. It works that she has an agent that represents both middle grade and YA. Basically, building that tracking sheet out and filling it in and working on the draft is goal number 1. Then work on writing the logline. As I said, I want to, focus on, can the story be described well? How can it be marketed? How can it be targeted? That kind of thing. Writing a query, and I want to do a query and a synopsis without going back to the draft. I want to see how well the story I have in my head that I think is there matches with the story that is actually there. I also think that writing a synopsis can help you figure out issues in the story just by doing it. So that's a really good exercise. Then I'm going to reread the 3rd draft all the way through without notes as quickly as possible, just with like a reader sensibility, trying to approach it as a reader. Then my idea is to make tons and tons of notes after reading it. So going back to the query and the synopsis, saying this isn't quite accurate, this is not what came on the page, this part of it feels weird, adding notes to my page with the editor's notes as well. And then I am going to go into full analysis mode. So I have never really seen, I'm going to be honest, the utility of that StoryGrid spreadsheet. But now I do. As I was editing the 2nd draft, or the 3rd, what am I calling it? As I was editing the 3rd draft of Some Kind of Criminal, which may or may not be the story that I continue working on in January. Again, I have a video coming up about that. It just became super clear that like a spreadsheet like that would be super helpful in terms of specifically tracking like how the story is turning on values and where the main character especially, is on her arc, as well as like what all of the threads are of the story are doing. So I might do some like combination of StoryGrid with, if you've seen the like J.K. Rowling's outlines, and maybe also throw in a beat for like Save the Cat beats or Anatomy of Story steps or something, just to really try to like analyze, get into analysis mode of the story, then figure out the problems, make a new outline, and we see what happens next after February. So that is my number 1 goal for 2022. Let's move on to some more, fun, loosey-goosey goals. So goal number 2 is to submit a play to 3 competitions. I've chatted about writing plays before on my channel. Doesn't seem to be a huge playwriting community on YouTube, I will say that. But I do love my plays, and I have 2, I think. Again, talk about that in this other video that's coming. But I have 2 that I think are in fairly good shape, and so I want to submit them to competitions. With plays, a lot of like theatrical companies and such will have these sort of competitions for writers, and let's see what we can put on, that kind of thing. So again, it's just kind of like, let's try to get the work out there and see if we can get feedback on it, and just do the thing and get over being scared about it. Number 3 is finish a personal essay. Not publish one, just finish one. Whenever I sit down to write a personal essay, and I really do enjoy doing this, I always end up with just like fragments in like no particular order, because I feel like it's hard in those essays to get like the ideas to come together and have like a nice through line. I'm really good at like describing and exploring certain ideas, describing certain events here, describing certain events here. It's just getting it to be like a contiguous thing um, that I have not been able to do. So what I have is like 4 different documents with like fairly decent writing in it. That's all very interesting to me that I think would make cool personal essays, but they're just like random. It's just like 2 paragraphs that go together and then like another 2 paragraphs with something completely different. My goal number 4 is to send out 12 newsletters and post 4 times a month on YouTube. So if you didn't know, I have a newsletter. I also have a website. It's NicoleWilbur.com. Very hard to remember, I know. And I did not send out 1 newsletter in 2022. And I feel very bad because I had 45 people, which is incredible, sign up to this newsletter, and I didn't do anything with it. And I think the reason I didn't do anything with it because my goal was to make it seasonal. I have a theory that in an effort to say, let's make it low effort, only do it 4 times a year, I kind of shot myself in the foot because that is such little irregularity that I'm not used to doing it. I don't remember to do it, and it's not really a routine at all. So I am working on setting myself up for success so much better for that. I have a template. I have a list of newsletter ideas now that I'm keeping, and I'm going to try to do it at the beginning of every month. So hopefully I'm like, oh my God, it's the 25th, must work on my newsletter. You can actually see the newsletter that went out in January. If you click on the link in the description, if you're interested, you can join my 45 people who are subscribed. I absolutely love them. They're wonderful. It's super fun. It's super fun to write these newsletters. I actually have a friend who's a copywriter, and I adore her newsletters because her copy is all about like having voice and personality and being cool. And I have no interest. I don't need copywriting services at all. Like I'm not a coach. I don't need the kind of services that she gives, but I would always read her newsletters. And so I'm still playing with the voice. I will say that. But as I sat down to write this one, I was like, you know what? You could be non-generic and you could try to like be funny. We'll see. You can let me know if I succeeded or not. And just make it fun. And so I did that and it was fun. So hopefully it's more fun. I really admire this friend of mine, and she does like, she'll put in curse words, she'll put in like pop culture references. She does like all this really relatable stuff. She's awesome. And she is right. When you're a little bit more authentic, it catches people's attention more than just being boring. So that is the goal for the newsletter, and then posting on YouTube 4 times a month, which is once a week, which I have kind of been doing, but have been sort of also dropping off of at points, which is, too bad. All right. And then goals 5 and 6. They are the shortest ones and the ones that I'm probably going to chat about kind of least here. It is number 5 is getting a 1-year entry exit visa for Portugal. I want to try staying in a place for a little bit longer. If you don't know, I consider myself a digital nomad. I travel quite a bit. I've been home for the past 3 months since October, but when you see this, I will no longer be home. I will be in Brazil, and I kind of have plans to travel until the beginning of June. And anyways, I came to the end of this year and I was like, oh, I had so much fun. I had so many amazing experiences. But goodness gracious, it's like hard to keep up with connections. You meet so many wonderful people, but then they leave. So I have a lot of like sub goals for my own life. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to stay in one place, and I'm going to try to move to Lisbon for, I probably won't be there for a full year, but like, I don't know, 8 months or something, and just see what happens. And then goal number 6 is to keep my job. I saw my list and I was like, should I have something about my career on there? Because, I like my career. It's a good thing. I paid a lot for it, and it's kind of fun. It takes up quite a bit of my time. And so, yeah, that's on the list. I put it on the list. Hey, that's great. It's on the list. So, that pretty much sums up my 2023 goals, which I'm realizing right now say 2022 on them, and I need to fix that. There we go. Okay. And then finally, if you do click on that newsletter, I have a whole kind of concept. Again, I got this from other people who are absolutely wonderful friends of mine who talked about, rather than doing resolutions, things that they have or they've written down, like a manifesto or principles or things like that, to kind of think of or like focus on for the year. So if you want to see those, you can, again, click the link in the description below. I don't feel like reading it out loud because it's a little bit cheesy, but that's been really interesting for me, and I'm excited to try it as a sort of alternative to a traditional New Year's resolution. I have like 4, we can call them principles, 4 principles for like mantras of the year. I don't know. We will see how it goes. I'd be very interested in hearing, A, what are your goals for 2020 or 2023? B, how do you plan to do those goals? And C, do you make New Year's resolutions or do some kind of like word of the year or focus of the year or principle of the year? And if so, what do you do? What kind of systems do you have for it? What do you like to do? Can you share them? I would absolutely love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time with another video.